This summit survey is brought to you by African Renaissance.
Welcome to the survey. Sorry, you have to take that again.
This summit survey is brought to you by African Renaissance.
Welcome to the Summit Survey. I'm joined now by Andrzej Kiepiela, who's the MD of African Renaissance, and we're talking about the 14th African Renaissance Festival, which is coming up on the 24th and the 25th of May. Andrzej, thanks for joining us. All right, we're talking African Renaissance, as I've said in the beginning of this interview. Just let us in on how we're going to take the issue or the concept of the African Renaissance from being what is a rather emotional issue, which it has been up until now, into a practical outcome for the African continent.
Well, when we started 14 years ago, it was all about social political issues. In particular, when we started in KwaZulu-Natal, the violence was still there, and the tension were quite high. So the first couple of themes was about conflict resolutions and be the best we can be beyond conflict and so on. 3 years ago, Minister Bella and Premier of KwaZulu-Natal, as well in Kiza, suggested that we look at more supportive role in terms of infrastructure development. Hence, we coined the Connecting Africa theme, which was introduced last year, and we're taking to another level this year. Basically, what we're trying to achieve is to become a forum for public-private sector leadership in Southern Africa, in due course in Africa, to have an annual opportunity to meet and exchange ideas, create programs, and endorse policies.
You've brought up the issue of public-private involvement. So we know the public sector is involved. Let's look at the private sector. What's the take on business and their involvement in this sort of conference?
Well, we brought the Chambers of Commerce, and then this year also through BUSA, Planning Commission, National Planning Commission, various departments on the government side, and then private sector, obviously, as I mentioned, through the chambers. We have invited the most advanced companies that operate already in Africa, like Checkers and MTN, Standard Bank, Deloitte, and others, to become a party to the program. So you have ministers from SADC countries, South African ministers, and you will have senior operators of state companies like Transnet, Rail, PRASA, and so on and so forth. On one hand, on the other hand, you've got operators from private sector that are now at the forefront of going into Africa and beyond.
All right, so your participation is clearly there. It has grown from the public sector and from the private sector, but what are some of the outcomes that you have realized over the last 14 years that you can say, we've made progress in promoting this theme of the African Renaissance?
Yeah, the outcomes was initially to bring together the fighting factions within South African politics, and if you were to look at some of the tapes of 13, 14 years ago, you would realize what was achieved since then. And there's peace now in KwaZulu-Natal and obviously in South Africa in terms of interpolitical fighting in a physical sense. And they will fight in democratic sort of ways, but not physical, killing each other and so on. And that's one of our greatest achievements. Then we brought the culture. We invited a lot of artists from across borders from South Africa and so on. So for 3 or 4 years, we're promoting cultural exchanges. Then we brought the academics. And then we tied up with the free movement in America through Andrew Young, Ambassador Andrew Young, and James Orange, and the King's Foundations, and Jesse Jackson. That was a sharing of experience of going through transitions. On the business side, we've started to employ the inputs of business proper about 3 or 4 years ago. And now it's really into PPP. The call by President to give a push to educate people what it means, access to contracts, access to programs, access to twinning and doing business together with countries across our borders is our aim.
All right, lastly, your conference on the 24th to the 25th of May. This time next year, what are you hoping to have achieved in about 10 seconds?
Well, we've got certain elements. So 24th, 25th is the main conference. 22nd is the youth, where young entrepreneurial characters that are already successful, some 400 of them will get together. They will have exchanges of ideas, businesses, and so on. Then we have the Africa Day concert, which is always full, 7,000 people fill up the arena. And the platform is growing from initial 500-600 people participating in the whole festival. Last year, nearly 11,000. So the growth in terms of direct presence at the event.
All right, thank you. We'll leave it there for now. That is Andrzej Kiepiela, who is the MD of African Renaissance. That's your Summit Survey. Thanks for watching.
This Summit Survey was brought to you by African Renaissance.